Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast, where we give our guests the opportunity to talk openly about the career, their ups and downs, and all things in between. You can follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch it on YouTube. If you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like and a follow on our social media, which you can find in the link in the show notes. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 19. This week, I was joined by Nat Burton, who is an Australian professional basketball player. Nat was a representative of the Australian national team and has played 6 seasons in the Women's National Basketball League. Nat is currently working on Enriched Athletes, who provide athlete wellbeing services and programs to enrich the lives of athletes as they pursue excellence on and off of the court. Our discussions centered around her experiences as an athlete that got her started working on Enriched Athletes, and also the benefits mental health training provides. Thanks again to Nat for joining me on the podcast, and I hope you all enjoy the show. All right, we're live. Nat, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I'm actually really excited to get chatting because it's good to have someone who's quite athletic and accomplished athletic goals like you have as well, but also post what you're doing outside of the court as well, which is really good, which is Enriched Athlete, is that correct?
Enriched Athletes, yes.
Awesome.
That's it.
You want to explain a little bit about how you got started with that and what kind of started it?
Yeah, so it started about officially a year ago, but for a long time I was always like, while I was playing, like, what's next? Like, what is it for me? Because although I have achieved really good and amazing things in basketball, I always knew there was something else. Like, it never felt like the be all and end all. So I was just trying to figure that out. And I think I fell into it in that I always wrote a journal. Okay. And I always was like a deep thinker and always thinking about, why am I struggling with confidence? And I didn't have anyone around me. I had one mentor who really helped me, but it felt like it was a missing piece, like the mindset type stuff. Yep. So then I was like, well, I've got all these writings. I've done all this work on myself. I can help other athletes with that. And that's how it was born. Wow. Yeah.
So just kind of giving back almost to the younger generation coming up.
Yep. Just wanted them to realize that, or to help them with the areas that I struggled in. I saw a big gap and it didn't make sense to me because we all know how important our minds are, but it's just not trained. Like we're training our physical body so well, but we're missing the biggest piece of the puzzle. And that's why we're seeing a lot of mental ill health, especially in athletes, but also in our wider population of just young people. So I was like, well, I can help. I wish I'd had that. Let me give that to those people now.
So when did that start in your career? Like the mental training, did that start in the middle or towards the end or in the later stages?
I never really had it officially. Okay. I saw a sports psych just before Rio, probably 2015. I went to a sports psychologist for about a 6-month period, which was incredibly helpful. And that dropped off purely because I left the state to play somewhere else. Yeah. And so other than that, it was just me I felt like I struggled through it. Like I stumbled my way through. Yeah. And I'd look at other athletes, especially on the Australian team, and I'd be like, you're so confident. Like, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I as confident as you? Without realizing that everyone has their own battles with confidence, with self-doubt. But I thought that there was something wrong with me for it.
Right.
So I didn't have that official training, but I just kind of found my way through it. And I was always curious about, how do I get more confidence? Let's look at that on Google.
It's interesting as well because how do you, it's the perception of what confidence is. Like you're looking at someone else and say they appear confident, but on the inside they might not be. No. And it's just how you kind of, how you present it out into the world.
Absolutely.
Is what's kind of fascinating, what makes other people think, and then you all kind of internalize it too much. Why aren't I?
Exactly. And we're always coming from a place of scarcity, like I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not confident enough. They are. We're always comparing ourselves to others and we're always finding the faults in us too easily, missing the good things, the strengths. And I would at times feel like I wasn't allowed to say I was an Olympian. Like this is even after the Olympics. Like I didn't have the right to call myself an Olympian because we didn't do very well at the Olympics, like the history of the Opals team.
Okay.
And I would always struggle to say, like, I'm good at, these are my strengths. Yeah, on the court, but also as a person in general. So we always, you know, when I ask the younger athletes now, I'm like, so tell me about yourself, or if you look into the mirror, what do you see? And it's always like normally negative things or finding fault with their appearance. And it's never, I really like the way that I'm really funny. And I really like, you know, this part about me, this part about my personality. So we're always just finding the negatives. And then, we compare ourselves to others and we always fall short.
Why do you think that? Why do we always go to the negative? Is because we don't, is it because if we put the negative out there, then it doesn't hurt as much when someone else picks it out?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, there's definitely a bit of that. It's like a protective mechanism. Like people do it when they make fun of themselves. So if I make fun of myself first, then I'm bringing myself down and now you can't make fun of me for it. But
doesn't
also,
hurt as much.
But also I think our default is to come from a place of those beliefs that hold us back, the things that are wrong with us that make us unviable, unlovable in the world. And we're kind of taught that from a very young age as this is what's wrong with you. This is why you're not loved, or this is why you're not accepted. Go and fix that. There's something you need to fix about yourself. We always feel that, but we forget that we don't need to fix anything about us. We're perfect. We're not even perfect. We're the way we're supposed to be in every moment.
That's interesting. To be, just to kind of think that we are right where we are. We don't, like, there's no other way to think, because if you do, then you're putting yourself in a position where it's not good, because if you're trying to think of something you don't have yet. You don't want to be away from the moment. You're
coming from a place of like scarcity, from lacking. And it's always like, then we look at the external things like, I'll be happy when I make the Olympic team. I'll be happy when I get that car. And
then there's always the next.
And then it's the next thing. And it's always putting it outside of ourselves. But the key is it's always in us. So am I talking about basketball? Am I going on the court right now to make that person in the crowd think I'm a good player, which I did for most of my career? Or am I going on the court because I love to dive on loose balls and I love to hustle and I love to play defense?
And it's like you're putting it into a different kind of context, I guess.
I mean, do you want to give your power away to someone else, or do you want to
keep it for yourself? Hold the power or give it. There you go. That's an interesting way to think about it. Because usually, like, the common kind of perspective is that you go out there and you kind of, well, like, say, my background, combat sports, I do a bit of Muay Thai, and it's like, if you go out there, and I like to watch MMA, and usually most of them are like, want to win the championship, like want to win the belt. You want to make as much money as you can while you can, but really and you got the one fighters there who just love to fight, and it's the two kind of who battle against each other, and usually the ones who love to fight more or less always win. Always end up getting into the top 5 contenders and always seem to be making the way, but also you got everything else that happens with the fighting as well. So that's kind of interesting perspective and putting into a context. It's doing what you love, holding the power of your skill, but not putting it out to someone else. You want to seek validation, I guess, from other people.
That's, I think, a trap that everyone falls into, but I see it a lot in athletes because it's a performance. You're on the court for everyone to look at and to judge, and you feel very exposed. And you get selected for a team by someone else, and now people on social media have plenty to say about you. So there's always that such a strong external force, and it's so easy to fall into that trap of trying to seek that validation from outside of us. And I think we forget that we can validate ourselves. We can say, you can go and do that.
Criticism is probably one that is even crazier as well, because I was reading the blog post that you came out a couple of days ago. Was that right? Criticism?
A couple of weeks ago.
Weeks ago. It was talking, you said, oh God, now it slipped my mind, because it's, when someone says criticism about us, it's usually because we know it as well, and that's why it cuts so deep. You also said that when someone says something criticism about, but we have confidence in, but we're good at it doesn't really affect us as much.
I think of it like water off a duck's back. When that criticism, you hear it from someone and you have a certain confidence about it, you're like, no, I'm all right with that. That doesn't sit with me. But when you already feel insecure about it, that's when it hits you. And that's, like I say in the post, it's that's the type of criticism that hurts us the most. And so it's easy for it to find its mark. But also it's a great insight into the areas that we have insecurities about. So that's a red flag, like, oh, maybe I should do some work on this, like work as in journaling or reflection, to figure out, why do I feel insecure when someone attacks my performance on the court? Oh, it's because I think that I'm not good enough and I'm trying to get their approval. Let's go back to what I love to do on the court instead of worrying about trying to make other people happy.
Does that confidence come from the kind of performance you've had when you're younger and people praise you, like you played a really good game, and then when people are saying those nice things about you, then you want to keep seeking that? Is that what drives that kind of seeking of approval, I guess, from coaches and people?
I think we all have it.
Yeah.
But again, it's interesting for people who play sport, is because that's the environment is built around, well done, good job. You get that praise and that validation from coaches, from parents. So I actually work with my younger clients on what type of praise are their parents giving them? What type of criticism are their parents giving? Are their parents there purely for support, which they should be, or are they trying to be another coach? Quite often it's the parents are crossing that line, and it's hurting the young athletes more than helping.
Probably would hurt more if your parent is someone who's quite accomplished in sport as well. Would make it even harder for those things, because I guess if you have a parent who's quite accomplished, you probably seek their advice regarding that environment or that sport as well as a coach, or you probably don't even kind of put the coach's kind of messages in front of your own parents, because it's your parent and they were quite accomplished in the sport.
It's really tricky, because you love your parents and you want them to love you. So you just want to make them proud. But you've got now another figure, a coach, who should be the one person that you're listening to. Because your parents aren't at your training. Your parents don't know, what the team's plan is, but the parents think they do. So they have plenty to say about it. And then the kid's put in a tough situation. Do I listen to my parent bagging out my coach and telling me to do this in the middle of a game? Or do I listen to the coach who's, for now, in this environment, the key decision maker?
Yeah. It's so hard. It's so difficult because it's such a big environment. So many people are trying to give what's best for you as well. That's what's so many conflicting kind of interests. Well, not so much interest, but conflicting. You have so many different people who are looking out for you, and you don't know, because you're so young, you don't know what's best for yourself, really.
I think that's interesting too, though, because sometimes people think they're looking out for you, the best for you, but it's the best for them. So I work with some coaches as well, and some parents on, especially coaches. Are you coaching for yourself right now, or are you coaching for what's best for the athletes? And the same for parents. Are you talking to your kid because you've got some egoic agenda, which they probably don't realize is going on, they're unaware of, or is this truly in the best interests of your kid? I think it's really hard, fine line to find that balance, and you've got to be really self-aware of what your own beliefs are to make sure that's not happening.
Is it a way that you've kind of, in your own kind of journey, being able to perceive criticism and kind of make it work for you?
Interesting, because I think I always ask myself this: would I have got to where I got to if I didn't have the struggles that I struggled with? Because I was always on the hunt to prove to coaches, to everyone else, always listening to that criticism, but I didn't enjoy basketball that much. So I fell in and out of love of basketball a lot. So I guess I was fueled by trying to prove to someone else that I was good enough to play basketball. And that maybe got me further and further, because I was, I had that, I got to work hard, I got to do this, I'm trying to reach this goal. But at the same time, I wasn't happy. So I didn't love basketball. After the Olympics, I didn't love basketball.
Right.
And I would rather love basketball and be happy and fulfilled than I was holding myself back. I wasn't playing the best that I could play. I wasn't playing how I wanted to play. I was playing for other people. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's kind of interesting because I've had a few people come on the podcast and say that sort of stuff about their sport that they've played. And it's interesting because you grow up and you get into the sport because you love it, and then you find out you're actually good at it, good enough to make a career or, do that. And then it's about then you got the pressures of making money, like you're turning the love of when you're a child into an adult career, and it's kind of balancing all that sort of stuff as well. And then you got pressures from outside sources weighing you down, and then the other thing you got, you've got social media, people putting you down as well, then it's why have I put myself in this situation? And playing the sport that when you were younger got you away from all of that is no longer there anymore. You're going out and there's more pressure on you, which is incredible.
And it kind of blows my mind because I think the key is holding on to that fun and that playing, that play. It's like a playtime. And as adults, we lose that. But kids are so good at it. They just play and they're pure in that moment and they're just having joy.
Yeah.
But we do lose that when it becomes more than just the game. So then it's about, I think we lose our way and then we've got to come back to it. And I know that the last 4 or 5 years of my career, I've come back to, what do I love doing on the court? Because this is not making me happy. Trying to prove that I'm good enough to other people. And not even just on the court. Like it affected me off the court entirely. I thought if Natalie couldn't score enough points and look good enough, then Natalie as a whole person wasn't good enough. So I had to cut that persona, I guess, or the identity that I'd attached to the way I performed.
Was that you kind of come to this realization now that you've reflected back upon those times? Or wasn't you weren't thinking about that in the moment? It was kind of after you realized you fell out of love and you want to get back to what you love doing?
I think I figured out the key in the moment. But upon reflection is when I really solidified it. So I was I went to Europe after a year after the Rio Olympics. I went to play in Europe for the first time. And it was actually the best thing for me because I was away from all the extra stuff. Yep. So all the commentators and the people that had stuff to say. I essentially was in the middle of nowhere. I was in Germany and no one really spoke that much English. So if anyone had something to say about me, I didn't know what they were saying. So it was actually really good for me. But I also had to figure out, because my coach, English was his third language. So we would go onto the court and we'd be like, we don't know what the game plan is. We're just going to do this. And so that was kind of like freeing. We were really successful. Can't say it, successful. So that helped. But also like personally for confidence wise, I couldn't rely on a coach anymore to be like, hey, you're playing really well, like keep it up. It was just like, all right, this is on me now, which is kind of the way it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you kind of get in trouble at all when you went away from what the coach wanted to do? Like,
he yelled, but he yelled in Polish. It didn't hurt. It didn't matter.
Goodness.
Yeah.
But also there's another aspect of that side as well is resilience.
Yeah.
And how have you kind of built up your resilience? Was there a stage where you're like, got to build thicker skin at all?
This is so interesting. I had this one coach who is one of my favorite coaches, but he was always like, you got to get more aggressive. You got to get like tougher. Right. Yeah. You got to have thicker skin and stuff. So that affected me in that I was never enough already. Like I was never, there was something wrong with me. I had to fix it. So I always felt like I was on that journey of fixing that about myself. But I think just naturally I'm not someone who really gives up, in that I went to college for 4 years and I didn't enjoy it over there, but at no time was I like, I'm going to go home. I had the option to, like I could have come home or I could have transferred schools, but I was like, no, like I can tough this out. And upon reflection, again, I realized that is resilience, pushing through when you think you should give up. And then you get to a point where you can look back and you can be like, oh, if I had given up back then, I wouldn't be here now. And look at what I've learned because I was resilient. And now I'm going to apply that the next time. So the next time I feel like giving up, it's a reminder, keep going. You don't know what's on the other side.
That's kind of, have you read the book called Grit?
Half of it.
Yeah, so that's what they talked about, grit and passion and resilience, or what the keys to success. And usually the things that sometimes you'd really love to do or you're passionate about, you're going to have times where you're going to have to struggle through because there's aspects that, there's nothing is ever linear, never going to love something all the time, and you're going to go through peaks and troughs of passion. But as long as you got the resilience to kind of get through it, then the other side is success. Whether people's perception of what success is very different sometimes as well.
That's a whole new can of worms.
Yes. We can go down that a bit later.
Yeah. But on that, can you say what you said again about going through tough times, getting to the end, looking back, realizing what you've learnt from it. I've been talking to a lot of young athletes, not even athletes, young school kids at the moment. And I say to them, hey guys, guess what? Like, I've got a little secret for you. Like, every athlete, they actually don't enjoy training. You know, it's like a little insight into, there are times where we don't want to be on the court and we don't want to be running up and down and we don't want to go to the gym because we're tired and we're sore and we really don't feel like doing it. But we do it because we're chasing a goal or we're showing resilience or that passion. And I think that's good to let people know that we are human. Like, we're normal people who have some natural ability, have some resilience and have set a goal and want to achieve it. But there are definitely times where we don't want to do what we have to do. I think it's good to know.
Yeah, I think that's important too for the young kids because easily when I was younger, you look up to them, look up to other athletes or especially I love footy when I was younger and looking up to those guys and you'd be like, that's amazing. And then getting into strength and conditioning and now like sometimes you might have guys that you watch AFL and they've come down to waffle or sample level and then I've been able to coach and I've been like, oh my God, like I'm actually standing in the same room as you. But then like you realize, this is like another person. Like sometimes they don't like trust it. They crack a joke and they're just normal people who are actually good at football, you know?
Yeah, like, I think it makes it more accessible for especially young kids to be like, I can be that one day if I want. If I work hard, I could be an Olympian instead of it being something like totally unreachable that's just not even possible. So I think that's an important message.
Olympics. That's crazy. It's still unbelievable for even to be a part of a squad. Do you feel that like now? Like when you say you're Olympian, does that kind of make you feel proud or?
Yes, now, but it's been 5 years. Yeah. For a while, no. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to admit that I was an Olympian. I felt really self-conscious about it and ashamed about it, which I know sounds crazy. And I'm not throwing away the amazing experience I had. It was actually really hard for me to come home from it and people were like, wow, you went to the Olympics. Like, I bet it was amazing. And you're like, yeah, it was amazing. And in your head, I was like, it was really horrible. It was a bit of everything.
A lot of pressure.
Pressure. Just we didn't perform to the expectations we had set and everyone else had set. So the Opals, the women's Olympic basketball team have medaled at every major event for the last 20 more years for like ever. So it was the first time that we hadn't won a medal at an Olympic Games since they got into it. And that caused a lot of backlash in the media from past players, from the basketball community, and we felt it all. And I felt it. I listened, and I know other people listened as well, but I was already at that stage where I had massive insecurities and self-doubt. So it found its mark, that criticism. And that took away from my Olympic experience. So at the Olympic Games, it was hard and grueling and not the best environment at Rio in the village and, things like that. It was hard, but the aftermath was almost even harder.
Does it make it harder as well because the Opals aren't like a team that you spend 32 weeks out of the year season together, is it you don't really get to sit down and digest and talk about and work through those challenges and as like a team or individuals and you've got like in a club you have psychologists to talk to about that sort of stuff, you can work together. Does that make it harder that it wasn't like that? Do you feel like if it was a team that you were like in a season, like a club season, you could work through something like that?
Yeah, I think when you're in a club, and it depends what team, like not all teams gel like that. But when you are in a good team for like a 6-month season, it can feel like you really know each other and you spend so much time together in training that you figure out how to work well on the court. But in the Opals, you're right. It was like every month we'd have a 10-day camp or a tour or something and you were together for that short amount of time and it was 2 trainings a day and you were living with those people, but you're also competing to make the team against those people. So it was a very interesting environment. And it does make it harder to gel.
Yep.
But having said that, at the Opal level, you're at a level where you can at least on the court figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Even with such short amount of training. But I have no doubt that if you had a 6-month preparation, like a normal season,
And then even afterwards, because I'm not too sure about this, but after the Olympics, you don't really sit down and review what happened, or like isn't like performance and sit down as a team, or we could have done this better. You don't really do that, do you?
No, because at the end, it's kind of the team also changes. I mean, in this case, the coach wasn't the coach anymore. It all changed. So there is like a review, but it's like a survey.
You don't really get to sit down after a footy game or a footy week. You have Monday, you sit down, you've got meeting, you got your coach has a little chat, and then you got line coaches have a chat, and then by Tuesday you're into the next one, and then I think at the end of the season you have a sit down and you kind of go through goals and that sort of stuff. It makes it hard, especially with the Olympics. You have a build, like you're saying, you have camps and all that sort of stuff where it's more about competing against each other and working in the game plan and less of the review and what's going on forward. Yeah.
And also the support after Rio at least was, looking back, lacking. Like I was in a bad place, and I should have probably seen a psychologist or a sports psych at least. But instead I struggled through a season in the WNBL, and then that's when I went away to Europe. And that's also inspired me to do the work that I'm doing now, is because I see that support that's needed. And I think I can help with it.
The more you talk about it, I guess, as well, the easier it becomes for someone to make that decision to go and see someone. Because it would have been a big kind of had this kind of, I don't know, you would go and see something, go see a sports psychologist. Back a couple of years ago would have been like kind of been looked up, like a bit of a weird look. But now the more people talk about it, it's not really that kind of, what's the word I'm trying to look for?
It's a big stigma.
Yeah, stigma. That's the one. Yeah, a bit of stigma about going to see it. But now more people talk about it. It's okay to go see someone because it's sometimes a fresh pair of ears to talk to, and they can talk you through things that you're thinking about. And
I recommend everyone to see a sports psych, but there still is that stigma. It's definitely getting better in the more athletes coming forward and talking about their own struggles with mental health. But there's been so long of athletes fearing it because of the stigma and the weakness that they think it is. And that's not helped by coaches who, that's the first thing. You hear someone's going to sports psych, weaker player. What's wrong with them? Why aren't they strong enough? They'll never make it to the next level. Instead of making mental health training and mindset training a part of a normal athlete's life.
Normalize it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do when I bring my program to clubs is this is going to be normal. Like at least once a month, they have a group mindset session. They're checking in weekly on wellness apps, things like that. It's just making it normal, making a culture where seeking mental health help is part of everyday life.
When we talk about your journaling, did you kind of look at it as you just write down your thoughts for the day, or do you use a set structure on how you kind of write down your thoughts?
It's evolved.
Okay.
So it started with, I'm feeling really anxious. I just need to write it out. So it would just scramble down what I was feeling, and then it would kind of help me. I feel better now because I've got it all out, and now it makes more sense about what's actually going on. Now evolved into I write every day, no matter what. And usually it is just kind of what pops into my mind. But I also have different exercises I'll take myself through. If something's come up, I'm like, what was the situation? How did it make me feel? What action did it make me take? It was that the best action. What can I do differently next time? And I've developed like an athlete's journal, which I give to my young athletes, where that is more structure. Yeah. So it's like, at least daily gratitude at the end of the day, and the reflective type questions about their performance in their week. So bit of everything, really.
Yeah. Is it important as well to make sure that's not all sport? You want to make sure it's life outside.
Absolutely. I think the more that you can help athletes understand that this is just one part of you, but it's not going to be around forever, and also you're more than whatever happens on the court, the better. The more balance they have, the better, always. So the questions in the journal are not all sport related. Yeah. They're the basic gratitude. Like, what did you do? What are you grateful for? Write down 3 things you're grateful for today. How did you help someone else today? how are you feeling right now? What are you excited
Yeah.
about tomorrow?
Is it at set times? Do you do it like before you go to bed, or is it before, like, or is it a time where you, like you said, you feel anxious, you just need to get something out?
So
There is.
personally, I do mine in the morning, but I'll also do a different one, which is those gratitude type ones that just before I go to bed. Because if you finish the day with those, like finding something that you're grateful for from that day, you're going to bed, lighthearted, weight lifted off your shoulders, going to help you sleep. Also going to help you realize that today was, this and this was good about today. Oh, I'm ready for tomorrow. Yeah.
Kind of get you up, get you ready, fresh.
Yeah.
You don't feel as heavy, I guess, if you've got thoughts coming from yesterday into the next day.
Yeah.
Feel lighter.
Short-term memory.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
That's true. Is it important as well, though, to make sure that when you're playing your sport or you're in your club environment, that you kind of do keep something that's sport related, like you got goals, you set your goals out for the sport, and to journal the sport as well as life outside? Does you want to keep it separate? Do you keep the two separate, or do you keep it together?
So the beautiful thing about sport is that whatever you learn in sport, it applies to every part of your life. Right. So that's why I love talking to kids about basketball. That's the vehicle I use to connect with them. But honestly, I don't really, I care about the sport, but I know that there's a bigger picture than that. I'm using sport, in this case basketball, to help them realize, oh, this is a time that you made a mistake and you thought it was a failure and you reacted like this and that made this happen, which was what you were trying to avoid in the first place. So how can we change that mindset? Oh, you had a challenge or a mistake. Now you can respond differently and you can achieve this instead. And how do you then, now I overlay it, what other areas is that happening in your life? So is it at school? Is this going on? Is it personal life, in your relationships? Whatever we learn in sport is just applicable to every part of your life. That's gold.
Yeah, that's so true. Because if you, like he just said, challenges, mistakes happens in school, work, sport as well, family life, relationships.
Yeah,
it does apply everything. Because one of the things that grinds the gears of most people is when you say leave everything outside of the club, you come in like fresh minded, but it's almost impossible. Like it's impossible now, especially with the rise with social media and all that. Like you can't just leave things outside the club room doors. You got to make sure that, you write things down or you speak to someone or you take time out. Like you just got to step away and deal with other things before you can come in. Because if you do come in with those things, it's not just you as well. You actually put negative energy, if that's a thing, onto other people. And I think maybe negative energy is like a wrong term, but you do feel that when someone comes in and they feel, a bit down or there's something not quite right and they're not kind of prepared to open up to someone or kind of speak up, and you can feel it off on someone. Yeah,
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Like I don't think, I always thought that, energy is a bit like woo-woo, a bit like spiritual, but I'm realizing now,
it's like a presence type of thing.
We're feeding off of each other's energy. We're also approaching things with a certain energy. So are you going to training and you're like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like today was really bad.
Yeah.
And then, when you're in that space, it's so much quicker to get irritated by the coach, by mistakes, versus are you going to training like, okay, I'm tired and I had a hard day, but I'm going to make the most out of being here. That flip in energy within you is going to affect how you see things that happen in training and then how you respond to them. Your teammates are going to feed. I agree that you feed off of each other's energy. You see it in people's body language. You also will feel that energy. I like to use the example of if you were to go and watch a basketball game and you couldn't look at the scoreboard, you'd be able to say what team's winning, what team's losing just by looking at, their body language. And you'll see, it might start with one person and you'll see it grow and grow and grow to everyone. So it's
interesting.
A lot there.
Have you experimented at all with like meditating or meditation at all?
Yeah, so I do a lot of mindfulness.
Yep.
That's one of the things I also get the young athletes to do.
Does that apply to that situation? Like if someone does come in, probably need to take 5 minutes just to like a reset. Is that kind of the right way of thinking about like a mindfulness?
Yeah. So at my NBL 1 team, which is used to be SBL.
Okay.
So it's the season I'm in now in Perth. We do mindfulness for 5 minutes before every training.
Yep.
So that,
as a team?
As a team, it helps people cut off the day and head into training with a a good energy. That's what we're hoping for anyway.
Yeah.
But I do encourage the young athletes to develop some sort of mindfulness practice daily, just because it's going to help them regulate emotions. So when they're in that moment where they can either react to the ref's bad call, or they can respond in line with what's going to help them play the way they want to play, then, that's a tool that they can use for that.
Do you mind sharing how, is there any type of, how does one mind, you just come in, sit down, reflect on the day, or is there a set kind of questions you ask yourself and relax that way? Is there a way that you do it?
Normally I'll find, any of the apps.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Headspace.
Is fantastic. You can just go on YouTube and find something.
Mm-hmm.
But so they're for the guided mindfulness ones, which help if you don't, it's a practice.
Yes.
So quite often I think people do it for one time. They're like, I couldn't concentrate. I suck at it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's a really easy trap to fall into, but you've got to get better. You can get better at it the more you practice. But it's not about judging how you go. It's about, in that moment, okay, today wasn't, exactly what I wanted whatever, but that's what that experience was for me in that moment. I'm not going to judge myself for it. But yeah, so sitting just, you only need about 5 minutes a day has been proven to increase your ability to regulate your emotions.
Oh, wow.
5 minutes of it's just about an essence of paying attention to the thoughts coming into your mind and not following them. So you do that by focusing on your breathing, and then your mind will wander, which is totally normal. It's supposed to. But then it's like, I just started to think about basketball. I'm not going to follow that right now. I'm going to come back to my breath. Now I'm thinking about all those stress at work. I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to come back to my breath. And it'll happen. It can happen a lot and a lot, but it's just about some quiet time for your mind. Just let it breathe and relax.
Does that also training as well? So if something bad happens on the court or on the field, you can easily just bring yourself back to what's happening in that moment. So you don't want to reflect on someone's poor kick because really they didn't mean to do that. Yeah, obviously. You don't really want to focus on one bad kick. You want to get back and focus on what's happening now. Yeah,
absolutely. And that developing that mindfulness will help you do that in those moments on the court or the field, because that's probably the hardest thing to do. In that moment, it feels so right to be angry and frustrated and to let that eat away at you. But then you're taking an action because of that emotion and that thought. If the good athletes can have an awareness of the thought that's coming up, or that emotion, that anger, that frustration, and then let it go, and then refocus on game goals or where's the ball? What am I doing right now in this moment? I've got to get back on defense. I can do that instead of reacting to that emotion.
Interesting. How did you kind of come about as a team to do this mindfulness before trainings? Is that you spoke to the coach, or was a team thing
that wasn't me? Yeah, that was a team thing that one of our assistant coaches, she was still studying at the time, and she wanted to see the effect that had on performance. So they brought it in for every training, and we've been doing it for 3 years.
Oh, wow, 3 years.
Yeah.
And you felt like have other players said that's made the difference, or they feel better?
I think I feel better.
Yeah.
I think it's, if you go into it just doing it because you have to do it, well, then that's what you're going to get from it. But if you go into it with, okay, this really is 5 minutes just to chill and just to let my mind rest, then they're getting something.
I feel like that's the same with a lot of things. If you go in kind of not with not saying you're not doing it 100%, but if you're not going in with the right attitude to succeed at something, then you're never really going to get the full benefit out of something.
Yeah.
They might, if you're not going in with 80% intent of doing this mindfulness properly, or with the effect of actually trying to make yourself better, then you won't get as much out of it as someone who does go in with the most.
It's a good question to ask yourself, what's my intention? Set your intention for what you're doing, what you're going into every situation with, every interaction with a person even. What am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? Set your intention instead of, half-assing it sometimes and getting away with it.
You were saying you worked as well with school kids that don't actually have, not athletes as well. Do they differ much with how you work with them? Like you were saying, use the sport as a driver. With the kids who aren't athletes, is there a different way you approach them, or?
Well, usually all kids play sport.
Yeah.
So I can still use that as the vehicle. Yeah. But it's easier when I talk to basketball athletes because I've walked that path and that's easier for me to relate. But knowing that the struggles people have on the court are the same as the struggles they'll have off the court, they just present in a different way, then I can attack it like that and help them through that. So it doesn't really change. It probably just makes my job a little bit harder.
Yeah.
In how am I going to use an example of this situation for a kid, or and usually I just use school or homework or something.
I just want to say, those will be the next one. What was probably the most, not like a situation, but like, does it make it more complicated, or does it get complicated the younger the kids are, or is it the older the kids are, it's harder to kind of work through their situation?
It's an interesting question. Because I work with, the youngest would be an 11-year-old. Oldest would be 19, 20. Different conversations. Same things, just the 20-year-old would be a more in-depth conversation, talking about maybe broader, like getting really into like how your brain works and, the set of beliefs that we have about ourselves. Whereas for the younger athletes, it's more about really drawing on the examples or situations that they've gone through in sport and kind of helping them understand what's going on, like planting the seeds. Almost.
So when something does happen, they understand how to approach it?
Yep. But as well as, they've had examples of times in their life where they reacted to an emotion on the court. Okay, so that was this at 11 years old. Let's start talking about that. Let's start developing your emotional awareness. And let's also, I really like that I can get them talking about emotions, because I work with a lot of young boys as well. Yes. And helping them understand, first of all, okay, what do you feel when you're angry? Sometimes we just have to start there about describing each emotion. Okay. That's missing from a lot of young people's lives.
Would that be the key difference between probably the boys and girls you work with? Like the boys have is it more pent up kind of emotion and the women kind of express it more, or there's obviously a difference, but kind of key ones.
I think I don't know if I've really seen it that much.
Okay.
I know that in my mind I generalize it too, that the girls will be more in touch with their emotions. But I think for boys, they're just not used to talking about it as much, whereas girls will already have that experience of talking about the emotions, but they both are still quite unsure about what emotion they're feeling and what that emotion is trying to make you do. The action that it's telling you to do, when it's normally maybe that action's not helping you achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah. As well as that, there's also so many different other factors. Social media would probably have to be the worst thing to come about for anything to do with your mental health. Yeah. I feel as soon as I get on like a Twitter or Facebook, I feel instantly angrier. Like those I get so much more aggression. You just read things because one of the main things as well is that they have word limits. Like you can't actually express yourself on these platforms. And then people you take out of context what someone says because they don't have the words to explain it. But does that make that like your job even harder as well? Like people, they've had experiences on social media, negative or positive, that makes that even harder. Like they think that those social media is real life. Where in fact it's not.
I haven't had too much experience with that yet because I'm working with a lot of younger, and I think that's fantastic that I can get to them early.
Yeah, so before it comes a factor.
Yeah, but it's still there, and it's still clearly there with young people dealing with like judgment from others. Yeah, so I know that even at 11 years old, someone's worried about being judged by their school peers. And I know that social media is just going to amplify that tenfold in a couple of years for that one person who's only 11 years old. I just know from my own experience, it's not nice. You're right. Like you said, you get angry when you get on there. I get anxious and I hate it. And then I've started to notice myself saying in my head, scrolling, like you're scrolling.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Like you're just flicking through.
Yeah. It's like time to stop scrolling, put it down. But again, with the Olympic experience, I
Yeah.
I read articles. I listened. I read comments as well. There's no need to read them. Like there's. I wish I hadn't read them. I think it's easier just to not even worry about it.
Do you have any strategies now that, like, do you have a time? Do you put like a time limit on, or do you say to yourself, don't like, if a report comes out from a game you've played, you don't read it, or like a newspaper article, you don't read it?
Don't read it.
Yeah, just
don't bother. Like, I did it too many times over my career, and I did it at college, did it all the way through, and it never made me feel good. Like, it only ever made me feel bad because it only hit the insecurities I already had.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if it did make me feel good, maybe I had a good game and they said, oh, Nat Burton had a blah, 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 good game, whatever stats were. I maybe felt good for a fleeting moment.
Yeah. Because then did you also have the kind of, you flipped it back and like, I could have done better as well?
Normally it was, oh gosh, now I've got to play better next time.
Yeah.
Oh God, now I've got to, like, there's this expectation on me. Or sometimes it would be like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to be able to do that again. So, well, better not read next week's report because I won't be mentioned.
Do you ever wonder or kind of get kind of jealous, I guess, of other athletes who kind of block it all out and then just able to perform no matter, they probably read everything that's negative about them and then they just use that as fuel, I guess, to kind of perform, and like that doesn't seem to bother them at all?
Yeah. I think that's a risky area.
Yeah.
Because I think that if you're fueled by anger and trying to prove other people wrong, I think you're still putting your power outside of yourself.
Yes.
So you're still trying to prove to someone else that you're good enough and that what they said is wrong about you. And if you're fueled by anger, it's like a short fuse. It'll give you a quick burst of energy, or maybe that can be over a few months, but it can't last forever. And one day that's not going to be there and that's not going to be fueling you enough. And then what are you left with? Oh, it's almost like you've got nothing now. If you have a strong sense of your why, of your purpose, of what's driving you internally, what you love doing on the court, then that's always going to be there. That's not an emotion that goes. Yeah.
It's a foundation of everything else.
It's understanding you and what your big, deep why instead of a quick sprint.
Yeah, like a burst of energy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting because a lot of people who are like that.
Yeah.
Are kind of young, I guess, in a way, when they're sport and they kind of have this meteoric, like this massive rise and they get to the top. But how long can they sustain it up there and before they kind of come back down and they realize, well, I've got nothing to fall back on, but nothing that holds me to me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like that why, I guess?
Almost, why were you doing it? Like, because they were doing it for someone else. So then suddenly they're feeling empty because they realize, oh, that wasn't even for me. I was trying to please someone else. I think it's a slippery slope. Yeah.
Looking back on your career as a basketball player, do you have a moment where you were like your most proud moment of being able to play basketball? Like you've not like satisfied, but you felt happy that you're able to play, or gratitude towards playing the sport you love?
Ooh, I think there'd be a number of times. Probably it's coming to my mind mostly my time in Europe, because that was really transformational for me to figure out, I'm over in Europe, I'm away from my family and my friends, living like in the middle of winter in Germany, in a sad place in Germany. Like, I get to live in Europe, but it's not all it's cracked up to be playing over there.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, if I'm doing this, then I better be making sure I'm happy and enjoying it. Otherwise, literally, what is the point?
Yeah.
So I think that was a moment that clicked for me. Oh, so what do I like to do on the basketball court? And that was the first time. And that was 4 years ago. And I'm 32. So there's a long time of playing without that, without realizing what I actually love to do on the court and that I can like feel joy from that. So that court-wise would be that. But now I have a greater sense of gratitude for basketball in general and for the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride, because I know I've learned so much from it. And now I can use that in Enriched Athletes and I can I'm just so passionate about like giving, like helping other athletes going through that, to give them what I wish that I could have figured out at age 14 instead of age 27.
How did it come about that you went over to Europe and played over there? How did it come about?
I always wanted to try playing in Europe. So I have an agent, and I said, let's try Europe, and something came through for that. So I spent 3 years over there, in Germany and France.
You'd have had all the emotions, like being away from your family, like anxious, and then just the love of the sport got you through it, like falling back in love with it. Is that how you kind of got through it? Or
I think because the same thing happened for college, because that was 4 years away.
Yep. And
I remember the first time I could have gone to college, I said no, because I was so scared. I didn't want to leave home, and I knew it was going to be hard. And I'd seen Love and Basketball, the movie, and it looked really scary. College basketball looked horrible. Like everyone was going to be mean. Like I was was full of fear. So I said no, and I waited another year. I did a year of physio here after year 12. And then I realized that if I wanted to make it to the next level, WNBL, which I decided I did want to, then I had to go to get better. I had to go over there. So then it was about not letting that fear hold me back. Yeah. So doing this thing that was really hard, that I didn't want to do because of being away from family and friends, but knowing that I had to do it because I was chasing something more. I was just chasing my best.
Yeah.
I wasn't chasing fame. I wasn't chasing, anything other than I want to make it to the next level. I want to be the best I can be to make it to the next level. Yeah. What is that? What needs to happen for that? I need to go away to get better.
Did you have kind of your goals written down at that stage? Like you kind of had it, did have it in your head?
No. I never, ever, ever thought I was going to go to an Olympic Games.
Okay.
I never wanted to go to college. It wasn't until, I think that helped me though.
Okay.
So I just wanted to be the best that I could be. So when I started playing basketball, playing in under 14s, okay, what do I have to do to be my best? Well, I need to get better at this.
Yeah.
Okay, so that led up naturally to under 16s. Okay, what do I need to do to be my best? Like just keep working hard, keep doing extra trainings. And if an opportunity came up to join a new squad, like a intense training squad, do it.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't really want to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that helped me. I didn't realize it at the time, but upon reflection, that helped me.
Because of the smaller goals, right?
Yeah.
Not like when you're 14, I want to go to Olympics. And it's like how many years, when you were 25, you said when you played Olympics, 26?
26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 10 years away if someone was 15.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think that this interests me because working with athletes that age now, I say like, what are your big term goals for basketball? And they're like NBA, Olympic. Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with having those goals. But are you realistic? Okay, we need to break it down now. What do you need to do to achieve that? Instead of like, I have this big goal. I'm going to be the best NBA player ever. Well, okay, let's figure out like your little goals, but also let's make sure there's something else like school there.
Yes.
Because we can't put all our eggs in one basket.
How long, you said before, you kind of took a while, like you always thought about what was after basketball for you?
Yeah.
When you were younger, did you not have that net, kind of didn't branch out and look at a career outside of basketball? You kind of just all in on the basketball?
No, I wasn't really all in. My mum didn't want me to go to college because she wanted me to have a good education. So I was always like, okay, I think I want to be a physio. I never really knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I knew I had basketball there.
Yep.
But I was like aware that I had to have something else, especially being a female athlete. And, you can't just rely on basketball or whatever sport it is. So thanks to my mum, I did have that always. Maybe would have said nagging back then, but now, I needed that. And although I went and studied finance at college and I don't have anything to do with finance now, I did work full-time in financial planning when I got back from college and I was playing. And then when I decided I had to move away to help me make the Olympic team and to get better at basketball, I couldn't stay in WA. I didn't want to. Then I didn't do anything other than basketball for maybe 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I struggled.
Yes.
So I needed a balance, and everyone needs a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take away, like you want to, a mental break, I guess, is that?
Yeah, because if all you have is basketball and you're not playing that great in basketball, well, it's going to impact every area of your life. But if you can say, okay, I've got basketball, but I've also got a family, or I've also got this study and this work and this hobby,
running a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then it's like I've got that balance. I'm not only a basketball player.
Yes.
And that's what people who are retiring really struggle with. Is I approach retirement, and I knew, like 3 years ago, I was like, okay, retirement's coming soon. What's going to be?
Yeah.
And for a while, it was like anxiety because I didn't know what it was going to be.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had that kind of, like the whole COVID lockdown, I think it kind of came up for a lot of people in the fact that I felt like my job as a coach was what I am. Mm-hmm. So like not being able to be around athletes or being around athletes or other coaches, or being around the sport that I love watching and coaching for, was no longer like available for me to do. And I just sat at home like, okay, there is absolutely nothing. Couldn't go like, also thing I'd love to do outside of coaching is lifting weights. Couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do a lot of things that I like held like me. I felt like the whole however many months, 4 months it was, I was lost really. I didn't know what to do, and it made me reflect a lot on what I wanted to do after the whole lockdown, how I was going to approach my life and this sort of stuff. So I think it happened to a lot of people, and people discovering now that it's important to kind of have different areas of focus in their lives that are not all one, like not just your job. You don't have your job and nothing else. Make sure your husband or your partner and all this is just as important as everything.
For sure. And we can't attach our identity to any one thing. Also, we can't attach it to 4 different things. We can, do little things and have joy with those, and there are passions and we're
hobbies, I guess.
Yeah, we're more than just one thing or whatever we define ourselves as. So that's how you got into the podcast.
Yes,
during that time.
Well, yeah, it was. Well, that's because I listened to a lot of podcasts. You see, during that time, a little bit of Joe Rogan kind of esque about the way I like to kind of conduct interviews and more like the podcast, the conversations.
Yeah,
listen to a lot of that, and then kind of. Yeah, because he was kind of pretty influential person. So like he just kind of a freedom kind of guy. Like he just do whatever makes you kind of happy. And I was like, I haven't really heard that much from a lot of people. Going to get a lot of kind of people telling you should go to uni, you should go, work, love your job because, you're not going to be, if you want to work in your job, you want to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
But just because you do a job that you love doing, you kind of, I read this book called Drive. And they were talking about how if you start getting rewarded for things you like doing, you actually start to underperform in that because you expect a reward from it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do so well, sometimes you might like the reward's still coming, then you don't feel like you deserve that reward. So it's a bit of a cycle. They did it with I think it was monkeys or something like that back in the 60s. I think it was they'd like reward sort of thing like that. So that was this book of Drives ended up saying that like you do want to have other things outside of your main job that keep you happy.
Yeah.
I was like, well, sometimes your job can be money just coming in. You don't have to enjoy it. You can enjoy something else outside of like my training in martial arts, something that I like to do.
Yep.
And maybe I might sacrifice doing a job that I like doing for something that can pay me the freedom to go and do my martial arts.
Yep.
At certain times, they'll pay for my extra coaching that I might need to get better to get into the ring and fight, So,
and that's like tying that back into the intention. So like, what are you going into your, the job where you're just going there to make money, as long as you set that intention, like, okay, I'm here. It might not be my number one passion, but I know why I'm here. And it's to help me, support me, do the things that I love to do. I think the problem comes when you're expecting something else from what you're doing, and that's not given to you, and you're like, well, I have these expectations and they're not met. But I think that I really like the way that you can realize this is, this supports this, and that supports that, and that makes me.
Oh yeah. Do you have any kind of hobbies you like to do outside of this sort of stuff area now?
Yeah. I love to read all sorts of books.
Okay.
So fantasy, crime, self-help, love, in everything. So that is probably what I'm doing in most of my spare time. I do like to be a bit crafty. Like, I think my journaling is kind of me being creative.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one area that always makes me happy, getting to write. If there's a craft that I can do, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty open with what I do, in that I don't have a set. I don't like just drawing, or I like to go to the beach as much as possible. I'll swim. Trying every day, but it's been hard in this weather.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's like rain non-stop for the whole of July.
It's hard, but
it's cold.
It's cold, but yeah, it's beautiful when I go. I think I have a strong connection to nature that I haven't really explored.
Yeah,
much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's a bit of like a ancestral, like primal kind of instinct, maybe? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't explain to you how happy I get when I see a sunset.
Yeah.
Like, it's beautiful. And if I can get joy from that, I'm happy.
That's a maturity thing too.
Yeah.
Because back when I was 21, I didn't even look at it. Like, I couldn't even tell you what a sunset was,
Yeah.
But now, like, you get older and like, oh, it's actually quite nice just to go for a walk. Or actually, when you go sit on the beach and it's just quiet, like, oh.
Yeah.
You're just in this, like, a big sigh of relief. Like, you just feel like a weight comes off your shoulders.
Yep. Yes, very. No, it's good. And I have recently started taking cold showers every day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, from Wim Hof type methods, which has been good so far.
Are you going to try and hold for how many months? Are you going to set a goal or anything?
I'm just doing it every day.
Yeah.
I just do it every day. I just decided I just do it every day.
Yeah, that's an every day.
Yep.
Wow.
Either it's beach or shower. I try for 2 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cold.
I say it's not pain, it's just cold. It's not pain, it's just cold.
It's just the body numbing itself.
Yeah.
I tried every now and again, if I get into like a nice ice bath, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it says, like, I don't do it for like scientific reason, for like anything. I just do it because I know the science is 8 minutes, but if I could go 2 minutes longer than that, it's good.
There's with the cold showers, there's a lot about if you start your day like with some self-discipline.
Yes.
Then the decisions you make later on in the day are going to be.
That's interesting, because when I was really young, when I was 18, I was really big in like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all this sort of stuff. And one of his things that he said for everyone to do, like one of his little lectures that he gave out when because he'd do a lot of school like graduation ceremonies, and he would give his little speech. And he'd always say that the first thing to do in the morning is make your bed. That was a part of that discipline thing.
Yeah.
Like, you tick off that first box in the day, and then everything else follows.
Yeah.
Like, you tick it off, you wash your dish, like you clean up, you wash your dishes, do all of that, and then it just flows through the rest of your day. Ticking off a box, ticking it off.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I was talking back the sunset and the tribe thing. I read this book. It's called Tribes.
Yeah.
And it actually talked a lot about the like ancestral and our connection back to that, and why as humans we've been more successful as a society when we've gone through struggle. So like a lot of the wartime, like over in England, when during World War II, when the London bombings, the government were really hesitant about putting everyone together in like a safety kind of like a safe hold sort of situation, like a bomb relief kind of center. They were really hesitant about doing it because they were worried about all the conflict and a lot of people being in close proximity with each other. But what ended up happening, what happened in that environment is a lot of people helped each other out. Like they had this common factor, which was they were going through all this struggle. Yeah. And there's own little kind of community started in that. Like they had their leaders, people just kind of fell into their little fractions, and then they all had their own roles, and people were like, the mothers would look after the kids, and the husbands would go like make the tents and do all this sort of stuff, like the leaders. And that was kind of one area that was like kind of interesting. And then they talked a lot about the Native Americans and how they had a lot of really strict rules and strict punishments, but they lived free. And even the women in their culture, they were saying they weren't really bound to their husbands. They were able to do what they really wanted. They had freedom. They weren't really didn't have clothes. Like they looked at a lot of the Western culture that was at that time, and like and a lot of the Western women were dating the Native American men as well because of that freedom. They didn't have to live by their husband. They could go out and do other things.
Yeah.
But like the punishments for adultery, cheating, and all that sort of stuff on your partner was gruesome. That's why they looked at them like savages, really, because all of that time. But then he also said that the Catholic Church was just as bad because all their sort of stuff, their barbaric kind of punishments against their religion was kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
But that's a massive sidetrack from where we're talking.
Oh, no, I love talking about different books and different ideas and how they translate. I've been reading Sand Talk, which is about how Indigenous cultures can apply to now, to Western culture essentially, and it's very similar. It's I think we look back on the tribes and the way that Australia in particular was before Western culture came, and we have grown up thinking it was barbaric and it was caveman type culture, but it was advanced and it was different, and that's why it was scary for Westerners because it was different, and we went in thinking we're better than, and we've really ruined it and it affected them. And so I think the more, which ties it back into nature, the more we go back to those roots and just that basic way of living and what's important to us. It's not all this flashy stuff and this politics and everything. It's nature. It's relationships with people.
Yeah. Oh, the very strong community sense of community back in the tribes. That's all they had were themselves.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And also the hunting as well, which kind of, they would always eat the whole animal. Like there was never any leftovers.
Yeah.
And they've kind of gone back to, well, I haven't gone back to, I've recently kind of the last couple of months been eating organ meats just because I've done a bit of research in terms of like animal-based dieting and but like eating and that and all of that is because it was interesting as well that all the liver and all the organ meats so full of nutrients that they'd always go to the tribal leaders. Like there was just like an instinct for them. Like all the kind of the tribesmen would all eat the meat of the animal, but the organs, the liver, which was probably the fullest, full of nutrients, would go to the tribal leader because they're the most important. Yeah,
so it was the best piece. So,
best piece,
and we're not even eating it.
Exactly.
Well, you
are. Well, I know. It's sometimes I'm like it's not as good as like burger or something like that, but I do try to just like a little bit of liver just for the day, and I'll try other things, beef heart and. That beef heart's actually, if I gave you a piece and told you to eat it, it's a piece of meat, like steak, you would actually wouldn't realize.
You wouldn't know.
Because it's muscle, the heart's muscle. So it's just like a bit, like the way you cook it. If you cook in a fry pan, it might be a bit tough, but I slow cook mine. It's nice and tender. And I'll tell you, a minute you'd eat it and I'll tell you it's heart. You wouldn't believe me. Okay. But like liver and kidney, the texture of the organ's a bit different.
I've had kidney, I think, before.
How'd you like that?
No, I was a kid, so
no.
Silly.
Yeah. I was saying to someone yesterday, it doesn't taste it tastes pretty acidic, but you can put it in milk, and then because it's the pH balance of the milk takes out the acidity from the kidney.
Yeah.
But then you're just wasting milk. You can't eat bloodied milk.
Right.
Or you can't drink bloodied milk, sorry.
Yeah.
But you got to make sure it's fully submerged in because I put it in a little dish, a little like container, and it didn't fully submerge the kidney. And I was like, oh, that's enough, surely. Yeah. But the little bit that was exposed to the top still tasted gross.
Oh, no. Don't know how I feel about that.
And also you can eat it, organ meats, you can eat them raw. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You can.
I would have thought it was a bit dangerous.
No, because it's not, because it doesn't have, because it's not muscle.
Yeah.
It's organ. So it's not as, you don't get the bacteria.
Interesting.
Doesn't form in the tissue of organ meat.
Well, learn something new.
I thought it was crazy too. I have not had, like I don't fully cook it, but like I kind of let a little bit raw in the middle, but I've never eaten it like just flesh raw. That's kind of weird.
That's your next step, isn't it?
I think it might take me a while to pluck up the courage, I think, to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, it's a kind of left field question, but I asked this to last couple of people who have been on the podcast. Mm-hmm. If you were to have dinner with any 4 people, you could choose, who would you pick? 4 people.
That's a lot.
We can have less. You can pick on it too if you like.
Oh, 4 people. Kathy Freeman. Purely because I just remember watching her and thinking she was amazing and I wanted to be like her. It's got to be like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Got to have a basketball player in there. Got to. So much stuff there to learn from. I want to say like my pop.
Yep.
Because his, I don't know, just I feel like there's a lot that I missed from him. He passed away when I was 12.
Yep.
And I think, I love talking to the older generation and finding out the way that their life was and what they learned and how that can help me and apply to my life, and also just be cool to see him. And one more.
It's tough now. You got to slim down all those people down to one.
I don't want to just pick athletes either. I don't know. I'm going to leave it at 3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You're the first person to do that.
Really?
3. I had someone to pick an alternate as well. I had 4 and I gave them the option for an alternate.
But I reckon there'd be enough there to last
3 people.
Yeah, good time to get to know them.
You threw a spanner in the work for me. I never thought about picking one of my grandparents, especially one because my nonno, he passed away when I was quite young.
Yeah.
Never. You said you feel like you missed out a lot. I feel like I didn't get to chat to him a lot about.
Yeah.
Even like nonna told us a lot of stories, but be different coming from.
Yeah, the same. Like I always ask my nana now, like for stories about him. But it is someone who felt so influential in my life, who I don't know, because I was 12 when he passed away. So like that relationship was very, I was a kid. But to get to know someone now, as a 32-year-old, like it'd be, I think, a totally different relationship you'd have.
You do take it for granted a little bit when you're younger, and then now you're older and like, I kind of need that wisdom or that bit of life experience.
Yeah,
because you can get some like your parent, but then your grandparents is like the ultimate wisdom, isn't it?
Just something there. I just am so fascinated about like the way their life, how they grew up.
Yeah,
like what was their life like compared to what life is like now.
Always drew the same kind of similarity so I'm originally from Adelaide and I moved over here for work, and everyone was kind of like freaking out, like, oh, you're leaving, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. But like my grandparents moved countries, like Italy to Australia. And I was like, no one really, they freaked out, but I was like, they had to, they didn't have a choice. And it was the same kind of thing for me. Like, it's just moving. Like I'm moving a state. They moved country over and via boat, and it was like 6 months. And they were here, and then they're like nonna, and they were still over in Italy. They had to come here to work and pay for them to come over after. Like it was such a different kind of thing. But I feel I was able to kind of get on a connection that way. Like, I moved state, like we had a bit of a similarity type of thing, kind of felt a bit special.
Yeah.
It's kind of pretty cool.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
How do you go with talking to like your clients, like when you're working people out? Like, do you have conversations like this with them, or do you find it's quite superficial?
Sometimes. Different. So for different kind of, like if I'm working like in a big group, like at the footy club, it gets like a bit superficial. Sometimes we talk about just like general like sport and that sort of stuff. But like in the morning, like I do 6 a.m. kind of group. We have one of our weight session times is 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then some of the boys, we go out for coffee after, just over here at Nine Seeds, and we kind of sit down and we gets a bit in depth, and some of the guys tell some good stories, and some of them who played AFL tell some good stories. Like, some of that is pretty good. And then if I do get some people one-on-one, I don't mind having a chat, opening up. And when I used to work down at Waste, it all depends. Like different people open up a lot easier, and you can easily, like we have that energy, like you said, that presence. You can easily tell when someone wants to open up. That's why I want to start a podcast too, because I don't always get the kind of situation like we're in now. Sit down for an hour or whatever, however long we end up chatting for, to talk and to kind of see what's up. I've had two guys on the footy club in, and I was able to chat and get to know, like you don't always get to know them like this. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. I love it.
I think what gets on me about athletes, the way that in the media, it feels like sometimes there's a script. Especially in like post-game interviews, and it's like, you get the same questions, but also that you feel like there's a way you have to answer. It's almost like, say you had a bad game, and then you've got to be like, we struggled in this, but we can get better. We'll go back to the drawing board and get better for next week and stuff. And it feels like so generic. So
Yes,
I love
I
any
agree.
opportunity where, like, the more athletes, like you said earlier, that come out and talk about their struggles with mental health, the more real we're having real conversations. We're getting more of an insight into what athletes are actually struggling with and going through. I think that that's going to help if young kids, whether they're an athlete or not, can see other people talking real, not fluffing what they're saying, then they're going to understand, oh, that's the way it can be.
I appreciate that, because that's, because I have the same kind of thing as well. But when they come on the TV on there, they do little post game interviews, and they do the same kind of sentence, and it's like, no, give us something more. But also they don't have the opportunity. Like, if they did, it's also the culture of Australia as well.
Sure.
Like, if they did come out and say something, they're like, or they pump themselves up a little bit. Yeah, a really good game.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, how dare he say something like that? You know, it's a team thing.
Yep.
You look at NBA, like in America, like they're always pumping like themselves up. You know, that's kind of like the inner confidence that you go out and say, I am this good. And like,
Yep.
Imagine if Conor McGregor was an Australian.
Yeah.
That would like it would be the same thing
torn
like
down.
like Nick Kyrgios, sorry. All the things that he's done wrong. He can come out and say he doesn't like to do things, and just because people give him a hard time, he's a person himself. He has the right to come and say it.
Yeah.
That's why you got the Channel 7s and all those big kind of corporations, you kind of give them the blanket statement. You only got 1 minute to talk. You have no other time to kind of ask other questions.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit of a disservice to the athlete and then the person themselves.
I agree.
That's why I like podcasts, and it's long form and unedited.
Yeah.
Like, I can ask what I want. No one can control what I want to say.
Yep.
That's why I don't have any sponsors or anything like that.
That's good. Yeah. Because like on the sponsor thing, like if you're getting interviewed and you're playing for this team, well, if you say something bad about the game or about the club, then it looks bad. We are drilled. We're trained in media as athletes to, to what we have to say and what we're allowed to say and what we shouldn't say. And sometimes that's like a conflict of interest, or it's not true.
Or even sometimes you might say, like, it might be a hot topic, like, it might be something around gender rights or pronouns, but then you might say something, but then a sponsor might perceive what you said and might not align with their values and whatever. And then you have to, this awkward kind of situation, they have to come out and apologize. But it's what the hardest thing about communication is, that it shouldn't be put on you shouldn't be able to be like, when you've done something wrong, when your actions, you go and hit someone in the street and you get told off or you get punished because of that action. With communication, because it's so free and you can say what you want, but then like it's in the law, like you have the freedom of speech, but you can't but there's like also a responsibility not to hurt someone with that communication, that freedom of speech as well, which is always so confusing. Why always that fine line between cancel culture and someone taking you down off for saying something that's borderline mean to others, but then you have that right to say it as well, which is kind of very tough. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're given a platform.
Right.
You can do so much good with that platform. You can also
you have obligation, I guess, to do it right.
Yeah. So you want to be a role model. You don't want to say anything that's going to offend people. I mean, and you wouldn't if you got good values as a person. But I think we do need to be more real with what we're saying. And if it's a controversial topic, well, you're entitled to your opinion, but there's a time and place and a way to do it. But yeah, I think if we can just be real instead of have a script, then it's going to hopefully create more of a wider culture of, let's have a real conversation. Let's not just talk about surface level stuff.
And also as well, I think a way we kind of interact with each other as well has kind of disintegrate a lot because of social media.
Yeah.
Like, we can have a chat, you and I, but if we disagree on something, we feel like we would be kind of on the same level. Like, I'll agree with, you have that opinion, but this is what I will think, and then we can go both ways instead of getting to like an argument about, no, I'm right, you're right.
Yeah.
The thing, because I do the same thing with other people as well, but I like to get it right instead of being right. So I'm happy to be wrong on things. I'm happy to be wrong on things for it to be right, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't usually like to I don't like to have discussions. Informed discussions is probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Instead of like arguments. But a lot of people kind of get into this emotional state of wanting to be right. And it's hard to kind of, because of social media, they forget how to interact with people.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They can easily get on the keyboard and blah, blah, blah. I am angry because
no
of this.
consequence.
Yes, no consequences.
It's easy for
especially when
that.
you start talking fact to people as well.
Yeah.
I kind of get a bit on the kind of not aggressive, but what hits me hard in the chest, what I get real passionate about is about competition. And when a lot of things happen like around certain other areas where people are allowed to do things in competition, it kind of affects the integrity of competing with one another. That's what makes me kind of angry about. I try not to say too much about it because people go the other way.
Also, you're not going to change anyone's mind on something.
That's a very good point. Yeah. If they've already have their own opinions on it, it's very hard to change someone's opinion. So, you go that way as well.
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, we're here talking and it doesn't really need to be a big kind of argument about it.
Yeah, I agree. Just on like opinions and stuff, it's probably one of the hardest things I think to realize, and ties in with the feedback and criticism stuff that we were talking about before, is I use an example with some of the younger clients and I say like, okay, pretend you painted a painting, okay, and then someone walks up and says that painting is ugly.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh gosh, yeah, you're right, that painting is ugly. And someone else walks up and they say, that's the most beautiful painting I've ever seen. You can then go, oh yeah, you're right, it's beautiful, isn't it? But at the end of the day, that's their opinions and they're entitled to those opinions. That's their opinion isn't a reflection of you, the painter. It's a reflection of what they think about the painting. At the end of the day, you can buy into those. You can listen to them like I did with the feedback and the criticism, or you can speak your truth. You can know your truth. I'm proud of this painting because it took my blood, sweat and tears and it's my joy.
What I meant for you to do.
Exactly. Not buying into, you think it's good, you think it's bad, you think it's good.
Yes.
I'm all these things. Yeah. No. Come back to your truth. No one else speaks your truth.
Yeah.
That's their opinion of that painting. Wow. So that's helped me personally with my performance on the court.
That's a good analogy. Because you can make that clear distinction. Like if I'm a painter, I'll paint something.
Yeah.
And someone has two different people have different opinions of that painting. Doesn't mean anything because I put that out there because of I did it.
That's why
I drew that because I like that line there.
Yep. You're not their opinion. That's their opinion. That's them. And they're allowed that. Which is the same as social media. They're allowed to think whatever they want to think. We don't have to buy into that. We don't have to let it affect how we see ourselves, which was a big lesson for me.
Before we finish, I have to ask one more question. It comes from my Uncle Frank. He is a big avid listener of this podcast.
Yes.
Shout out Uncle Frank. He gave me when I first started, he didn't know I started one. And then he found out and he listened to, I think it was at the time, 8 episodes. Listened to 8 of them in like a weekend. He was real happy with himself. Supposedly he loves listening to them on like a Saturday. Okay. Saturday afternoons, like his kind of little ritual he does.
I love that
podcast.
Yeah.
His favorite, he sent me a list of questions, but my favorite of the list is this question. You ready for it?
Ready.
If nothing was impossible and money wasn't an object, what would you do?
So, very interesting. I actually ask myself that question, like if I could, do anything and I knew it was going to happen, but I think I was asking it in regards to what I do after basketball.
Okay.
It was always, I want to be a lawyer.
Oh, really?
I wanted to be like in The Good Wife and in like Law and Order SVU. Like I wanted to be a lawyer, but I wanted to be that because the lawyers are like strong and powerful and sure of themselves, and that's why I wanted that.
Okay,
I thought it'd be cool, but away from like a work thing, I just want to be on the beach. I just want to I would just live on an island in nature, go swim every morning. look at the sunset every night, look at the clouds, simple things like that.
By yourself? Group of
With
people?
family.
Yeah, family.
Family,
Yeah.
so important. And I always come back to that.
Yeah.
Always, just want to be surrounded by family. And I love any family event that we have. And that's why I want to connect with grandparents and those kinds of things. I just think that connection is beautiful. And at the end of the day, all that matters.
There you go. That's a very beautiful end to the podcast.
Yes.
I had a great time.
Me too.
Thank you very much for joining me on the show. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Thank you.